Hey guys, it's Denali. I'm back today with another car chat video. So today's topic that I wanted to talk about, or that I was thinking about, was the subject of resellers being gatekeepers. Now, if you're not familiar with the term gatekeeping, I looked it up and it said like the act of controlling information, like people who have information kind of controlling it and keeping it to themselves, which sounds about right. That's what a gatekeeper would do. Oftentimes I've heard on social media, especially TikTok, I love TikTok. It's one of my favorite social media platforms, but they'll talk about gatekeeping is something that anybody in business does essentially. And I've heard it a lot about resellers. One, people have their own ideas about resellers. They think we are stealing inventory from those who are in need and jacking up the prices on it, which that's a very surface level way to look at what we do. I prefer to look at what we do as saving clothes from the landfill, charging a fair price for the work that we do, all that goes into it. But in regards to small businesses and gatekeeping, oftentimes the message that I'll hear is that if you're not answering every question about your business, then you are gatekeeping information. I'd like to think that I'm not someone who's a gatekeeper. I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram and other social media platforms where I share tons of information. I put out YouTube videos on all the items that I'm picking up. I've talked in the past about how I do certain things in my business, how I'm feeling certain ways in my business. However, just hearing that people think that if you're not answering questions about your business, then you're a gatekeeper, I guess kind of had me thinking, am I one? Or are you one? What do you think? Do you think you're a gatekeeper? So the two things that I thought of that I thought, well, okay, am I gatekeeping this information, were in regards really to how I source or the sourcing that I do. Now, I've shared in the past that I do liquidation, and I also share that I shop at the Goodwill outlet or thrift stores, just in general, right? There are questions that I've received about both that I don't answer. So I kind of wanted to get into that, and I just wanted to get your opinion or get you thinking about, are we gatekeeping or is this capitalism? Let's talk about sourcing. That's how a lot of people start out. Whether you choose to go into liquidation later, that's a different story. In regards to sourcing, I've had people ask me, what location are you at? What store are you at? What stores do you go to? Specifically, I go to the Goodwill outlet. So the question might be, what Goodwill outlet location is that? When this question comes through, generally I don't answer it. And it's not to be rude. It's not because I don't like the person. It's not for any of those reasons. Primarily the reason, to be honest, is that there are other people besides myself who shop at that location. And so out of respect to other shoppers, I choose not to publicly say what location I'm at. I know other people do, they'll tell like I'm at this location or whatever, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. For me, it's my small way of just not attempting to blow up any location for other sellers or for other people who shop there. Now, in the same breath, I also don't think it's rocket science. You could probably easily find out the location, right? If you're local to that area, you could just do a little bit of Googling. And to be honest, when there are locations that I've wanted to go to when I travel and I saw somebody else goes there and they get really great stuff, I never ask them, where do you shop? I just did my homework. Oftentimes people will tag themselves in a photo outside of the location. And so you can use Google Images, right? Or you can go to Maps and think, okay, well, they said they're in this general area. How many of this type of thrift store or Goodwill outlets are there? And you can usually narrow it down. And so for me, it's really out of respect, trying to be respectful for other shoppers, that I don't say where I am. However, one could also argue, I don't want to share the location because I don't want it to become too popular. I'm gonna be honest, that's not my concern. Mine really is like a respect thing. But I understand that because say you live somewhere with limited supply of good stuff and you found a location that has great things, then that would be a reason to probably gatekeep. Now, if you told everybody, hey, this is where I shop, everyone who asked you, where do you get all this great stuff? Well, you would be potentially creating more competition for yourself. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? What are the repercussions of doing so? Is keeping this information private smart for your business? Is this part of capitalism? Or are you being a gatekeeper? And is gatekeeping sometimes okay? Things to think about. And then kind of going into liquidation, and how does that play into liquidation? I'll have people ask me, what liquidators do you use? Who are your vendors? Who do you order from? Who should I order from? I also don't answer that one. The reason I don't answer that one is for the other reason I mentioned, which is I don't want to create more competition for myself. There aren't a billion pallets in the world. Now, that's not to say there aren't thousands. There probably are. But of those thousands, I personally am only interested in a select, I don't want to say few, again, we're probably talking about dozens or hundreds, a select number of those. And because of that, I am competing against other people who have done their due diligence and found the information to buy from these liquidators for these goods. And so I'm already competing against these people to purchase this inventory. And so if I open the floodgates and say, hey, this is where I shop to every person that asked, I would be creating more competition and potentially putting myself out of business. Not totally, I'd figure out a way, I'd adapt, but it just wouldn't be a very smart business move. But I'm curious, what do you think? I mean, is that smart or is that not smart to tell people where you're spending your money and where they should spend their money? For me, I know that the prices would increase for what I'm paying, and obviously I can only afford to pay a certain dollar amount. So in that respect, I guess I am gatekeeping, but I also don't think it's bad. It's what pays my bills. It's what helps me pay my mortgage. It helps pay my employees. So I'm gonna take that as not a negative. I don't necessarily think it's a compliment, but I suppose I could spin it and say I'm a savvy businesswoman in that way, that I am being respectful of my sources, trying to be respectful of other people's sources, and at the same time keep myself in business and also still sharing information. I made a really great video, in my opinion, on liquidation, and I said everything that I'm comfortable with. I'll link it here for you guys if you're interested in watching it. But it's where I refer people all the time. You know, there's a saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I can give all the information, all the best information I can, but if you don't take the next step and do something with that information, do your next part, do your little bit of homework, it's out of my hands at that point, without just straight up telling you, hey, here's my list of 30 vendors that I choose to purchase from. Anyways, that's just my thoughts on gatekeeping. I'm curious what you think about gatekeeping. You know, I don't think anyone should maybe like gatekeep stuff like floral poly mailers, right? Those are like a dime a dozen. They're already expensive enough, to be honest. I don't see the prices going higher on those, but maybe, I don't know. Are there things that you feel like you gatekeep on and those make sense for you to gatekeep on? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. I just think it's an interesting discussion to have, especially as small business owners. A little bit of food for thought for the day. Anyways, I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.